shootings in the city of Gary. We have 155 officers right now. We are currently hiring. We have applications out online through the Gary Police Department Civil Service Police Commission. The next police academy is in June for the academy here in Hobart, in July for the academy at Plainfield. We have 7 applicants out of the 101 that applied that are eligible to be hired. And I want to speak about that briefly. In July, the Civil Service Police Commission took 101 applications in, and after the process through the Civil Service Police Commission of the physical agility, the written test, the drug test, the background investigation, we were left with 10 out of all of those. And the other individuals were not suitable or not qualified to be police officers, or what I would call someone when you would want coming to your home to serve you. The 3 of those individuals have found other jobs. The economy is getting better, and they didn't find jobs in law enforcement. They're no longer interested in being police officers, so we're left with 7. For the past 5 years, we have hired everybody on our list who applied. There's not been a year where we haven't hired, and there's not been a year where we had to wait to hire someone because we had so many applicants that applied. And that's the current status of law enforcement nationwide. It's very difficult for any of us in law enforcement to get people in the door. And that's for everybody in the county, everybody across the nation. I think I've said this before. So we're attempting to hire. We also have an emergency hire application process going on where officers who are already in law enforcement, who are academy trained and are in PERF, which is our state pension fund, which is a requirement for you to be hired and to be under 36 years old. With emergency hire that doesn't apply, they can be hired immediately and come on and be hired as a Gary Police Department as long as they pass a background check for us and a physical agility and are able to do the job. That's where we are with hiring. That process is ongoing, and we intend to send people to the academy this June. We also have put the first of our new vehicles out on the street. As I was reported to the council last week, we did do the number, we renumbered them. They have our traditional numbers on them. Some of them are yet to be numbered, but none of them have anything on them that would be offensive to anyone.
Okay. I believe, Chief, I was trying to refer to murder-suicide. That's what it was. I know Councilman Mike Brown asked that question, I believe, last council meeting about the murder-suicide rate that's happening inside the city. And I believe the question was, what can we do about that? And I do understand how those things kind of work, but if you can talk through that a little bit.
Murder-suicide, like I said, we've had 4 of those this year where the husband or spouse or boyfriend killed the significant other than themselves. And to be honest, Councilman, I don't know what we can do about that law enforcement wise. Those incidents happen between 2 individuals. And what we find is when it gets to that point, a lot of time, even the family has been alienated from the victim. The victim has been victimized for a long time and has alienated themselves sometimes from people. And when we encounter them just in a regular call, we get very little or no cooperation from the victim to be able to help them. What we do, and this must be something that you do know, that we do a shooting review every week where we actually analyze and look at every one of our shootings, every one of our homicides, no matter how big or how small it is, everyone's important. If we find a situation where an individual may be in a domestic situation, we do what's called a custom notification. We have used Ms. Tanesia George from our shelter to go out and offer services to the person to try to get them out of that situation and maybe help themselves or have the tools that they need to get out of maybe an abusive relationship. So we do that.
What's that? Okay. Okay. All right. Yep. At this time, is there any questions from council member concerning public safety overall issues? Councilman?
Yes, thank you, Chief, and thanks again for participating in my community meeting, I think the week before last, and really helping to clarify the animal control issue, which we're going to, I think, have a public safety meeting later this month about that. So looking forward to following up on that. I did want to ask in terms of in terms of long-term hiring trends, where do we see the trajectory? What's our goal for the balance of this year, for next year? What do we expect in terms of attrition? And I also would ask a question about the status of the negotiations. And I know President Wolf is on, related to salaries. I know that a large part of our problem is that we're not competitive in either pay or benefits. And so that is a conversation that we ended with last year, and we're not able to do what we wanted to do. The majority of us on the council wanted to do, but nevertheless, that's something that I don't know where the negotiations are or discussions, but if there's any update on that.
So as I said, that's a great question. We hire every year. We hire as many people that qualify, that apply. We're looking to do some different type of hiring this year, which may involve some part-time officers. We are talking about that with the law department and how we will fund that and fill those people, to try to fill those gaps. We offer overtime to the point where we have a large overtime expenditure trying to fill our immediate manpower. But let me say this about hiring, and to bring it into a different perspective. The Gary Police Department biggest problem is retention. The Gary Police Department has a police officer on every agency in Northwest Indiana, Portage County, LaPorte County, Chicago, and every federal agency, including the Secret Service. If you're talking to the chief of Cherville, Highland, the former chief of Maryville, the former chief of Lake Station, those were all Gary policemen. We have hired hundreds of policemen over the past 20 years, and they have come to our police department, got some of the best training and experience that you can get, and they do leave our department for greener pastures. And while hiring is as important as it's always been, we've always hired every year. One of the questions that we received last year was, why didn't we hire this person or that person, or why did we didn't hire these people? And my answer that we hired everybody on the list that was eligible to be hired. But retaining people is where we are, which goes back to your question about the negotiations and the benefits. That process is ongoing. We actually have had one meeting with the FOP, 2 internal meetings to talk about financing, and one particular point that we're trying to get through both with the FOP and the city. I think Sergeant Wolf can talk about that on the here and talk about where our negotiations are, but we're on the same page with our current negotiations on a couple of current issues.
Thank you.
Any other council member?
We're just doing general comments, Councilmember.
Yes, just at this point, we're just talking about the public safety issues at this time.
Not the vehicles yet.
Right.
Not the vehicles. All right, so I'll make this comment. It's not really an issue, but I've been clear with Chief Evans about my want to connect with him on us getting the limited amount of officers that we do have integrated into the communities, right? Working with you when time allows to us to establish, support the community alliance meetings that you have brought up last year. I definitely don't want us to prolong that process. And then in addition to that, I would like to connect with the existing public safety members of this committee, as well as our council members, to also consider supporting any changes to our police commission, to include additional support as it relates to the community review board. So if we could review that as a committee to have an opinion and be able to just, say if it's even viable or not. The public has been asking us to do that. And so I don't think that is well versed for us to do that tonight, but we definitely as a committee should plan to look into that going forward.
Thank you, Councilwoman. That's definitely a good segue where I was heading towards that also. We continue to get a lot of, I would say, complaints from the public, speaking about transparency with the police department when we have police involved incidents, particularly shootings of that nature. And Can you walk us through the process? I don't think we can do it enough times so the public can understand how it works. If there's an officer, a Gary police officer that's involved in the police-involved shooting, what is the process? Because the real problem is there's no communication that's happening. We hear about incidents when it happens to other people, but when it comes down to the police department, we basically go silent.
I'm so glad you asked that because we get this question all the time. I actually met with the Police Reform Committee at the Marion panel over the past 2 weekends to talk about use of force, and this is a question that comes up. And no, we can't talk about it enough. The Gary Police Department, by practice, has done police-involved shootings this way since I've been on the police department, and tomorrow is my 27th year anniversary.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
So in the event that an officer is involved in a fatal or non-fatal shooting or a vehicular crash with injuries, the Gary Police Department does not investigate that incident. We look to an outside agency to investigate it because if we did investigate it, how can you trust it? We avoid the very appearance of impropriety by putting the investigations in the hands of an outside agency. That includes the scene management, evidence collection, interviews with the officer and with the victims, presenting a case to the prosecutor's office, and for that case to be reviewed by the prosecutor for charges. We don't have any information to actually give the public during this process because we don't do any of those things when that happens. If an officer is involved in a shooting incident, fatal or non-fatal, that officer is immediately taken off the street, is placed in some form of desk duty or inside job. But before that happens, they go to a mandatory management referral process of employee assistance through a certified, licensed counselor, and that officer is not returned to duty until that counselor, following HIPAA guidelines, says the officer is able to return to some type of limited duty, whether that is inside, outside, they determine that, and we follow those guidelines. For the past 3 years, I can only speak about that, in every situation where an officer has either shot someone or someone has lost their lives at the hand of a Gary police officer, they were very quickly, the family was very quickly represented by an attorney, which then prevents us as a city in speaking to them in any way at all. So that has happened continuously. I know the public constantly says that there's no transparency, but in these situations, we put that in the hands of an outside agency. And let me tell you why most of the time that is Lake County, because we've done this a lot of different ways. If we were trying, Lake County is the large, Sheriff's Department is one of the largest agencies outside of the Gary Police Department in Hammond. So they have the resources to quickly get people on the ground. They have an internal county crime lab. They have an internal shooting review team, and they take it over, and we don't talk to them. As a chief, I don't speak to them when that happens. We have tried to do it with the state police, but the state police are troopers that have a post in Lowell and in various parts of the states. In one of the incidents that I was involved with where Lake County was on another incident and we had to wait several hours for them to get here, we contacted the state police and they would have had to send troopers from Indianapolis to Gary to investigate the case. During that time, the evidence and everything else, including the victim of the incident, would have been outside laying in the street. So it's important not only to have it done timely and also by an outside agency. So Lake County is able to do that very, very efficiently for us and has been. After the Lake County Sheriff's Department investigates the shooting, they then turn the case over to the Lake County prosecutor, who then makes the final determination and talks to the public. That is how shootings are investigated involving Gary Police Department, and they have been for 27 years.
So during that process, is there any type of release from you being the chief from the city standpoint, what that process is taking place, that your hands is off, this is now turned over to the county? Because I don't care how many times we say it now, when those incidents happen, they still want to hear a voice. And sometimes when the voice goes silent, it looks like something is covered up or no one is doing anything. And we hear on several incidents that, okay, we tell them that the Gary Police is off hands, it's gone to the county, nothing is hearing from the county, whereas if the prosecutor, nothing is heard there. So it puts family and puts the community in a disarray a lot of times.
I agree. And the only thing that we can do in this situation, if it happens again, hopefully it won't, is to reiterate that we are not investigating and the process is with another agency and they have to contact those individuals, would be the prosecutor Bernard Carter or the sheriff department, to get that information. Let me also speak about how our Civil Service Police Commission does any of their disciplinary action. All discipline from the chief's desk, whether it's a verbal reprimand, a written reprimand, time off, or termination, goes to the Civil Service Police Commission in their open meeting the first Thursday of the month in the police department in the community room. It is open to the public. They can hear every part of the discipline that has been issued. In the likelihood that a hearing officer is placed on the case, because the only thing I can do as chief is give a person up to 5 days off. If I want to suspend or terminate someone, I have to go to the police commission and have a hearing. That hearing is open to the public. They can sit in on the hearing in its entirety and hear every part of the testimony from every person. The prosecutor, the city attorney, me as chief, or whoever the chief is at the time, the officer's testimony, and their defense attorney. No part of that process is behind closed doors. Some of you in this meeting have sat in on some of those hearings, and the media sits in on all of them and reports on them. So all discipline can be looked at by anyone and everyone the first Thursday of every month here, and any of the hearings that are scheduled.
Right. If there's nothing else, we will go to, we will have the conversation about the vehicles and equipment, and I will turn it over to our president this time.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Brewer, and thank you, Chief Evans, as well as I know our Corporation Counsel Attorney Pohl is on. Let's see, we do not have, I was hoping that Arlene Colvin, who is the chief of staff-ish, I guess, is transitioning out of that role, but was operating as the controller when the vehicles were purchased. I was hoping that she would be able to join us, but I don't see her here. I was also hoping that Mr. Reeves would be able to join us because he was obviously instrumental in the purchase of these vehicles. But in any event, I did invite Mr. Sam Roberts, who is, I've asked him to fill us in on the state QPA process, the history of his interactions with working with the City of Gary Police Department and how that worked. But I want to start by turning to Attorney Pohl. And for him, as much as he can, I recognize that he did not get a lot of the information as soon as he would have liked to be able to provide a thorough overview. But what he can share, I would like for him to share it at this time, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Godwin. So the information that I have received some information from Mr. Reeves. I'm in the process of reviewing that. I'm kind of very bogged down right now at the moment. It's a very busy week for me. But what I would like to do is be able to really get a good grasp on the process that was followed, the information that was received, and then have a discussion with pretty much all the parties involved, just to ensure that I'm getting a total understanding of it, and present that information in a report to this committee. And then if upon receiving that report, if the committee has any questions, obviously make ourselves available to answer those questions based upon that report.
Well, thank you. I did want to acknowledge that Attorney Colvin did send us a document from 2017 related to the purchase of the vehicles. And I believe Chief Evans You may have some knowledge of how that process worked. What I want to do is just briefly go over the essence of what those documents say. It says that in 2017, 46 2017 Ford Utility Police Interceptor all-wheel drive vehicles were purchased at $31,003.37 per unit for a total price of $1.427 million. It says that one 2017 Ford Utility Police Interceptor K9 vehicle was purchased for $35,670 per unit, and one F-250 XL 4x4 was purchased at $38,478.25. And there were two Ford Expeditions purchased each for $37,606.34. Now, I'm assuming that that is just the raw cost of the vehicles and did not include lettering, installation of radio lights, and other equipment. Chief Evans, is that information I just stated correct? And what would be your recollection of what the full cost would be?
My recollection is that is correct. And I went by the same information that was sent to you. I wasn't involved in the purchasing in 2017, but I do know that we did get 50 vehicles. 46 were Explorers, the K9 vehicle, the F-250, which we use to push snow, and then the two vehicles for the administration. And my personal knowledge is it did not include all of the equipment, and it did not include lettering and things like that, which was done as a later date. But again, we will be more prepared for that when we talk.
Okay, I'm going to ask a rhetorical question just for the record. Who is the commander within the Gary Police Department that's charged with ordering vehicles, maintaining vehicles?
That is Commander Colbert.
Okay, so are you here on his behalf? Why is he not here?
Commander Colburn and Commander Titus were supposed to be here, but after speaking to council and with the administration, knowing that we hadn't got all the information that we needed, we actually thought that this meeting would be scheduled. This portion of the meeting would be rescheduled for the next public safety meeting. It is my error, not theirs. I did speak with both the commanders today and told them that we will be discussing this at a later date. I did not know that we were going to go forward with this portion of the meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you. Let me turn to Mr. Roberts. Were you involved in the 2017 transactions?
Yes, I probably was.
Okay, so did the numbers I state, do those reflect your memory of what's going on?
Yeah, I believe that's probably true. I think that your 31 plus unit does not include lighting, radios, and any other extras such as decals and any markings and so on that you may choose to put on.
Right. So what would you say, in your professional opinion, you've been doing this for a long time, the average cost would have been for all of those elements that you just relayed for a police interceptor?
For those aftermarket items, you mean?
The decals, the lights, the
radios. Typically a decal package runs anywhere from, let's say 500 to 750. You know, in extreme cases where you have some very ornate schemes, it could be as high as 1,000. Typical equipment package upfits, including all the flashing lights and this and that you see on a red and blue flashing light coming at you or coming behind you. Those typically, depending again on how much equipment you get, but a typical package, and we do these all the time through our upfitters, run anywhere from 45 to typically 7,500. In a rare case, do they get up to 10,000, but they could.
Okay. So let's just, for argument's sake, say 7,500. I'll take the very top of your example, and I'll take $500 for the decal package. That's $8,000, right? And if I add $8,000 plus $32,000, I'll just even it out for those police interceptors. That equals $40,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Chief Evans, does $40,000 sound about right? Do you kind of, just rough estimate, uh, believe that the numbers that Mr. Roberts has provided for equipment and lights and decal, do you think those are credible?
I do think they're credible coming from Mr. Roberts. I'm not sure if that's the complete cost. I don't know if that would
Yeah.
include the computer and computer stand. I'm not sure, or the police radios.
Yeah, we were not involved in procuring the police equipment. You had a very capable fellow working in the Gary Police Department at the time. I believe he was Corporal Harlan Smith
Mhm.
at the time, and he had negotiated excellent pricing from a company called Code 3, which manufactures all those flashing light bars and what have you. And he got a factory direct to the city of Gary price without having to go through a distributor and pay that distributor markup. And as I understood it, we couldn't compete with our own upfitting crew with the pricing that he got. So he was very happy with what he did. And I'm not sure what equipment that the city of Gary decided they needed. If you have to put a new laptop in every car every time, well, yeah, that'll add up too.
And I took the higher number, right? So you said the average was 4,500 to 7,500. So I'm going to reasonably assume that that would have covered, on average, the computer and the stand. And
Well, you know, again, depending on what all you bought, but since your pricing was direct, factory direct pricing to the city of Gary, I would assume that you could easily outfit most of your vehicles with that.
thank you. So Chief Evans, and I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Roberts. Chief
Sure.
Evans, just from my own recollection, and maybe Attorney Pohl, you can help us out with this too. There were 13 SUVs, police interceptors purchased in this last round, and then 5 F-250s or F-150s. So 18 total vehicles, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the per unit cost for those vehicles was how much?
I don't know the per unit cost for them individually. We had different costs for our Explorers and a different cost for the F-150s. The base costs for both are different. We also have a few vehicles with the Explorer that are hybrid. Those costs are different as well. I'm not prepared to, I don't have those numbers before me.
Attorney, Councilwoman Atkins, can you check, we had some early numbers. Can you help me and check and see?
Yeah.
For the email on that, but while you're looking, Attorney Pohl, are you familiar with the numbers?
I've got some numbers, but I don't know if these are accurate or if these are quotes. I'm still kind of getting through a lot of this stuff. And I'm assuming that, yeah, based on this, I don't think that this is accurate because it's talking about 2021. So I do not know if this is accurate or not. So I don't want to quote the quote or misquote the quote, I should say.
So we have the vehicles in our possession, right? They've been received. In fact, I saw one as I was driving through the parking lot. The number that I recall that we had received was somewhere around $53,000 for the Explorers and around $57,000 to $58,000 for the trucks. And that was supposedly the total cost, the decals, the equipment, installation, etc. So I'm just going to say $53,000 all in. In my example earlier, based on Mr. Roberts' numbers, and I'll have him introduce himself soon, that's about a $13,000 difference. Arguably 15, because I think I'm probably way on the high end, given the direct factory purchase arrangement that Corporal Harlan Smith had. So we're probably less than 40,000 for the total vehicle cost. But in any event, it appears that we spent $15,000 more per vehicle in 2021 than we did in 2017. Now, I'm no economist, but that's a hell of an inflation. Something is not right with those numbers. So, Mr. Roberts, can you tell us about who you are, what you do, and your relationship with the Gary Police Department?
Well, again, I am Sam Roberts, and I'm the government sales manager for Bloomington Ford, which is now known as Community Ford in Bloomington. And we've had a long-standing relationship with the city of Gary and police department vehicle purchases. I can't tell you when we started doing business with you, but it has been our distinct pleasure and distinct honor to serve you. And I feel like we have always dealt with the city of Gary in an honorable fashion. And I can't, for the life of me, I was not involved, was not consulted in the purchase of that number of vehicles that you're currently talking about. So I can't tell you what happened there. I don't know, because that was not us. We are one of several dealerships that compete every 4 years for what's called the State Quantity Purchase Award. And that is something of pride to most dealerships that might be lucky enough, or unlucky, the case is, to win that contract. We've held that contract since 1994. And we just have learned in those years since 94 how this stuff works. And we understand that no two police vehicles are the same, but we also understand that they do start at the same level. You have a base price, for instance, a base 2021 Police Interceptor utility model would run you about $31,255, somewhere in that range. And then the price goes, when you start selecting your options, goes up from there. And hybrid is another $3,530 on top. So in any event, we have had a long, excellent working relationship with many departments in what we know affectionately as the region, including the city of Gary, including Michigan City, including even Schererville, including East Chicago Police Department, Merrillville, and many other PDs in that area. And they know they can call us with confidence that what they hear from us is going to be the right information.
Thank you. A few more questions.
Sure.
So in 2020, were you at all ever, to your knowledge or recollection, contacted by any official from the city of Gary?
No, in fact, I was kind of curious, wondering when I might hear from you.
Okay, because we were told during a public safety committee meeting, that's on the record, that there was an attempt to contact the state QPA in February of 2020, but that the state QPA had closed. In my ignorance at the time, I didn't know what that meant, but I took it as that somehow one could not order through the state QPA. But upon getting more information, there is no real meaning, and you can correct me about closing or opening. Once the base price is set, it is what it is. Is that correct?
That is correct for the model year.
Okay.
And the state, once a contract reaches its endpoint, and you mentioned February, and that was an arbitrary endpoint from the state, they asked if we can extend our price. And we said, of course we can, because we have that price that was valid for the entire 2020 model year. But we were not consulted on that, and I was kind of surprised not to have heard from City of Gary on some police acquisitions. And there is no, just because the state QPA terminates on February, whatever, 2nd or 7th or what have you, doesn't mean that we can't order police cars. We still can, and we still honor the price as long as we can.
Thank you. We were also told that there were no vehicles available, that, you know,
That's not true.
COVID had happened, and my very limited knowledge of vehicle manufacturing suggested to me that all of 2019, when vehicles were being made, that they didn't stop because of COVID. In fact, even in January, February, and March, vehicles were being manufactured and factories did not shut down. But let me ask you this: did you sell any vehicles to any police department in the state of Indiana in 2020?
Oh, we sold lots, yes.
Can you give me some examples of departments to whom you sold vehicles?
Oh, we sold, oh my gosh. Let's say, there are a lot of them. City of Indianapolis, for one. Pulling those out of my hat, you've caught me a little bit off guard here. I didn't realize I'd need to know those names, but there are a lot of municipalities and counties, Greene County, Indiana, the Greene County Sheriff, Brown County Sheriff in Indiana, just a lot of variety of police departments of all sizes from all corners. City of Evansville,
Michigan City?
Michigan City even, yeah. Merrillville, City of Merrillville, they bought several. There were a few departments that had to push the pause button because of COVID. And they said, well, we can't, due to the budget shortfalls and the lack of tax revenues coming in due to unemployment because of the COVID problem, they were having to take another look at what they could afford to buy. And we had several that said, hey, we've got to push the pause button on our orders. I already had orders scheduled in the system for them. And so that was okay. I said, don't you worry about it. We'll have a lot of buyers that will need vehicles. And that turned out to be the case. And in many cases, those original police departments that had to put a hold on their purchases resumed the purchase process a few months later once they had a grip on their financial situation.
So is it fair to say that you had sufficient vehicles to sell the city of Gary 18 vehicles during 2020 for
Oh, we could have had.
delivery?
We could have had as many as you wanted. Now there was, to be fair, there was a plant shutdown that started April. I think it was April 5th or something on that order in Chicago, where they manufacture those Ford police vehicles, and that lasted for a couple of months. But in no way did they shut off orders. We could still order vehicles and put them in the line to once the factory resumed production, to start receiving vehicles again. And so we had lots of orders piled up in the system, and we started getting orders again in August of 2020. And we had plenty available.
So orders that came to your office in February, March, April, May, June even of 2020, when would you say those vehicles were delivered on average?
Those were delivered as 2020 models all the way into September. And
so as
then,
early as September, vehicles were being received from your
even August and September, even
Okay.
August. And then in September, about the middle of September, we started getting our first 2021 orders.
Gotcha. Chief Evans, when did our vehicles arrive?
We took delivery of the vehicles this year. I think that we got them at the dealership the end of last year and began the process of sending them out to get the equipment on them. So we did, I don't know the exact date on which we got the vehicles, but it was the end of last year, probably in the early fall.
Thank you. So
President,
essentially, I'm sorry,
I just,
essentially, go ahead.
I'm sorry, President God. Before you go to your next, I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding because I'm taking notes. First, to your request, I don't think that we received the 2020 numbers in writing. The email that I have only had the 2017 numbers, so we should follow up on that. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood Mr. Roberts' commentary, because if I'm not mistaken, in the meeting that we had on February the 11th, we were told that the only dealership in the state of Indiana that had cars was Lakeshore, which was the
That's
dealer.
certainly, yeah, that's not
So,
true.
okay, okay.
You said that's not true, correct?
No, we had cars.
Got you.
We were not swimming in cars, but we had plenty of units.
Yeah, Mr. Roberts, it was stated to us that this dealer was the only dealer in the state, Indiana, that had cars in the pipeline. And therefore, the QPA dealer did not have any cars available for purchase.
Well, I don't know where that came from, but it wasn't from me.
Thank you.
No, we had plenty of cars in the pipeline.
Okay. Thank you, President Godwin.
Well, thank you. And so basically, you know, we were told it was such an urgent matter. COVID was happening. We got an order from somewhere and we needed to do this to get the vehicles. And so it seems that if we had ordered almost at any time during 2020, we would have certainly gotten the vehicles delivered around the same time.
Well, you'd have probably had those, well, if you'd have ordered them even in April, you'd have had them in September at the latest.
Wow, of
At
2020.
the latest, that's including the plant shutdown.
Thank you. So let me ask you this. You made a statement in the newspaper in an article that came out a couple weeks ago where you said that the $53,000 and $57,000 purchase prices respectively seemed a bit high. And out of all the vehicles that you sold last year to Maryville and Indianapolis and Michigan City and Evansville and other police departments across this state, did any of them, to your knowledge, spend $53,000 to $57,000 per vehicle?
No, not that I can't tell you what they bought in terms of equipment.
But their base price was.
The base price, you're in the low 30s, you know, in the 32,000 plus or minus range. And it would take a real good stretch to bring that up to 50-some thousand.
And so would you say that it would be kind of out of protocol or order to just go to a local dealership and buy them right off of the lot?
Yeah, that would probably be out of order, I would say.
Okay.
The State Board of Accounts, I can guarantee you, will not be happy.
Well, we're not happy.
Well, we're not either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the
And
state, the Board of Accounts, I don't know how often they take a look at the city's books, but I know other departments that do stuff like that, you know, have been, you know, written up and disciplined by the State Board of Accounts. So there, many departments are fearful of the State Board of Accounts when it comes to buying large purchases. Anything over 50,000, basically.
Thank you. So you would say, I guess, we could have gotten 18 vehicles at, let's just say $30,000 to $35,000. Our bill would have been roughly how much? I guess that's about.
Here, let me turn on my calculator here. 18 times, let's say you really went wild and got them for 35,000. That's 630,000.
$630,000. Okay.
If you had a vehicle cost, a total acquisition cost of 35,000 apiece. If you bought the vehicle, say for 32,000 something, let's just call it that. 32,000, and you spend another 7,000 on the equipment outfit, you're at 39,000, and that's being pretty liberal, pretty liberal.
Right. Let me ask you, Chief Evans, and we may have covered this before, but I want to be clear. Um, who within the police department worked on this? And if anyone, what was their role in terms of the ordering of the vehicles?
To my knowledge, the first part of this process started with former Chief Liggins expressing the real need of the police department to try to get those 50, and I say it all the time, I'm gonna just double down on it, Crown Vics out of our fleet that are 2010 and older. He began the process with the administration. I don't know whom, but he began the process, and then later on, the deputy chief and I met with Ms. Colvin and Mr. Reeves. The process was already started. So I believe that former Chief Liggins had given the type of vehicles he wanted and those things to, I'm guessing, I don't want to speculate, the administration or Mr. Reeves. And then within our department, Commander Colvin and Commander Titus would have provided specs for those vehicles, but I believe that was done by email, if at all.
So you said would have provided.
Yes.
Did they provide, or is that what normally they would have or should have done?
No, that's not what is usually done. Is internally we get our specs together, work with Mr. Roberts on the state QPA, identify what we're going to do, identify the companies that we want to use to put on the equipment. There are certain equipment that can be done at the factory. And I told you before, the Police Department has done this in every iteration. Sam can tell you, we bought cars from Indianapolis and come down there and got them. We bought cars here and had equipment put on here. We've done it in every way possible to try to be as efficient as we can. We would have began that process internally. I can't speak to what happened before I was chief, so I don't know what Chief Liggins did. Even though I was deputy chief, I wasn't involved quite deeply in that process. But we would have begun the process internally, identifying first, how much money can we spend? Number one. There's also always a question of our credit value with Ford and how much we can get from them. That was a real issue back in 2019 and 2020 because we still had payments to make. Based upon the funding source, then we could identify how many vehicles with the equipment we want on them and what divisions we're going to put them in, how many vehicles we could buy. So basically what I'm saying is it would have been an internal process between the comptrollers, whoever that person was, Commander Colbert, Commander Titus, myself, Deputy Chief, and Sam.
So you became the chief, and help my recollection, it was in the summer, right? July 1, we'll say, roughly July. Okay. Yeah. So the decisions around what kind of equipment would be ordered, what kind of decals would be used, and who would do those, all those decisions happened when you were chief, correct?
Some of them did, yes. The type of vehicles we would buy was already done. We sat down together at that time and decided what we were told, what we were getting, and what was available to us through the credit amount of credit that we had. The vehicles had already been ordered, and then the appropriate commanders were to provide the specs of what was going on the vehicles, the decals, the equipment, the computers, what we would use.
So I want to be clear because I'm not sure I'm understanding. Are you affirming that Commanders Colbert and Titus gave instructions to the administration in terms of the specs, the decal, the equipment for the vehicles?
I believe so.
So we're not certain of that.
No, and I'm not certain that I know they did this at some point. I don't know the timeline. I don't know at what point that was done. That's what I'm saying.
But they did it. So you're saying Commander Colbert told the administration this is who
Colbert did. And if it was done by email.
So okay. So we're saying if it was done, was it done, or was it not done, or we're not sure?
Something was done. Some exchange was done between the commanders. And I think Mr. Reeves, I believe it was by email. I don't know if there was any conversation. I know there was no physical meetings between them and information was exchanged. I just don't know when.
So let me ask two questions. So yes. Did we use a different service provider for the decals than we have historically used?
Yes, sir.
So Commanders Colbert and Titus endorsed going away from who they used before and using a new vendor?
No, sir. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm sorry if that's the impression I gave you. What I'm saying is we gave our specs to them. Whatever the specs that we use, not whom to get it from, not who to purchase it from. If anything, just specs.
But historically, you would have not only it all would have been done internally. It would have been just specs. You would have actually done it. Your department would have chosen the place for the decals, would have chosen the place for what types of radios and the installation of them. That would have all been done in-house, correct? Okay, but that was not the case this time.
To my knowledge, it was not.
And do we know why there was a change in protocol?
No, I do not.
Okay. So one of the questions that has come up, which I think beckons why I mentioned that, is because the radios are no longer, they used to be Motorola's. I think that was the preference. And now I understand that they are Kenwoods. Is that correct?
So the Motorola is what we traditionally use. The Lake County Dispatch Center, which dispatch almost everyone within Lake County, with the exceptions of 2 agencies, has preferred that everyone use the same type of radio for a few different reasons. Number one, the radios has integration. So everybody in the county can talk to each other and get on everybody's channels. Before, when you went into another jurisdiction, you had to have a separate radio called Eileen in order to talk to someone in that jurisdiction on the radio. Now you no longer have to do that. You can go right to their channels. And there are upgrades that Motorola is rolling out in all of their equipment. Motorola owns Spillman, which is everybody's motor data. MDT, which is how we do all of our work. Motorola has most of the body cams, the tasers, all of those things can work together. But the Lake County Dispatch Center has requested that we purchase Motorola as a request. These vehicles, these particular vehicles have Kenwoods in them.
So did you in your specs, or Commanders Colbert and or Titus, instruct the orderer of the vehicles that you wanted Motorola's to be consistent with the county and past practice within the police department, but also being able to use some of your existing equipment for backup in the event that you have technological problems? You could easily transfer those in and out of vehicles. So did your specs state we want Motorola's?
Yes.
Okay. So it seems to me, and I don't expect you to answer this, I understand your role, that the police department had a very limited role in ordering police vehicles. And that bucks our tradition. And it seems also that we have not used a bidding process, but there was just an ordering of vehicles at a dealership, which has cost us probably, I don't know, an additional 10 to 15 vehicles we could have ordered, maybe even for the same amount of money, especially if we had used. I know that Mr. Harlan is no longer with the department, but you know, if we had had that arrangement, we would have saved maybe even $20,000 per vehicle, which would have meant we could have doubled or 2.5 times our order. And we know that vehicles continue to be a critical need within the department. So let me ask this, and I won't bother you, Chief Evans, but Attorney Pohl, since you've been put on the hook on behalf of the administration, and I'm not sure why the current controller, because I know we're hiring a controller, is not present, nor is Mr. Reeves present. But in any event, what is the plan going forward to ensure that this never happens again?
On behalf of the administration, I think we're obviously taking a very hard look at the information that's being presented, both to the council that we're gathering ourselves. And I know that we're looking at establishing, a more centralized procurement process. I don't think that I don't think that we're operating necessarily differently than what was happening in the past administration. Again, I wasn't, super involved with a lot of procurement in the past, but it doesn't appear that, there was that much, or that the process was all that much different. I understand in this particular instance, there are some differences that have occurred, but I know
Attorney
that
Pohl, if I may interject, I have to interject. I know you also have a role. I think you must have majored in political science. I know we're both lawyers, but look, here's the deal: $20,000, $15,000, $10,000 even within a 4-year period, 3-year period, really is a significant difference. The chief is not able to confirm, and I understand why, that his own commanders who for decades in one case has been responsible for this, was even involved at all. The state QPA representative, Mr. Roberts, is here. He's been helping us with vehicles for 20 years or more, and he was never contacted. So clearly the process was not only financially different, it was different in terms of involvement, different in terms of protocol, and certainly different in terms of making sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. So let's not necessarily try to do revisionist history about what happened the last 15 months, but I'm asking going forward, how is the administration going to ensure that relevant commanders get to do their job?
Absolutely. So we're looking at a more centralized procurement process whereby each individual, department would have that input. There would be the boots on the ground approach. So we were getting the most accurate information, because in a lot of the departments, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of institutional knowledge. So for example, I know Mr. Harlan Smith's been brought up. There are Harlan Smiths in every department where they know, certain distributors are, tied to certain manufacturers, and, based upon that, they've got an exclusive agreement. Therefore, the amount that the sticker price might look good on the front end, but you're also going to pay more on the back end because that distributor charges more per whatever. There's going to be that kind of institutional knowledge that's in all of those. And so I think going forward, there's going to be much more of a focus on ensuring that there is one oversight, of the procurement process, and that there is the input from the individual departments, and particularly individuals that have that institutional knowledge. So I do believe that the concerns of the council are very well understood and taken by the administration.
Well, thank you, Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, yes. I think we need to take a deeper dive in this because something terribly went wrong and the council was just flat out lied to on so many different occasions. So I would not continue to have any more issues with this part of public safety. I will ask the investigation committee to take over at this point here. We're wasting a lot of time here. Individuals are planned not coming to meetings when they know what this meeting is about, not showing up. So we will subpoena all individuals that we feel that's a part of this incident here, because this is definitely not acceptable at all what took place. We were just blatantly lied to about the whole process and the reasoning why they went away from the state QPA and why they did what they did. This is not acceptable at all, and it definitely needs to be dealt with.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer, and I agree. I know that Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell, who's the head of our investigation committee, is on, and so we will certainly be relying on you and helping us to activate that. And I know our attorney Williams is on. And I think it's important for the public to understand that, we are not a rich city. We don't have overflowing amounts of money to make errors that are what we call preventable errors, right? We know there's a history of ordering vehicles at a certain price. Why are we creating problems that don't have to exist? And I think it's important for the public to know that I saw once someone say, why are you all worried about vehicles when we have all these other things going on? All of us, all 9 of us who sit on the council, we have an oath that we take to the Constitution, statutes of this city, and to make sure that, and we have a job to be a check and a balance on the administration to ensure that we are being fiscally responsible. We are fiduciaries. We've been hired by the public to make sure that there is accountability, that there is transparency, and that there is efficiency in government. And, I know that, prices go up, something might be 3% higher, 5% higher, but this is beyond that. This is an extreme, and we cannot afford to do this. We know that our police officers need good, solid, strong, reliable vehicles. There's still a lot of Crown Vics out there. And if we know that we could have ordered double or triple the amount of vehicles for the same amount of money, then we just cannot allow that to happen. So that's the spirit of this. I want to give Mr. Roberts an opportunity to say any other thoughts or recommendations that he has for this body. I don't know why he wasn't contacted. I don't understand why there was no bidding process, even if you're going to use a local non-state vendor. That just doesn't seem right to me. And so I want to thank you, Mr. Roberts, for taking time out of your evening to give us insight. And that's the purpose of our committee meetings.
Right. Well, Mr. Godwin, thank you for inviting me, and Chief Evans, thank you. And the rest of the council and the rest of the Public Safety Board, I appreciate the opportunity to lend whatever insight I have. You know, the old expression when it comes to car salespeople is, how do you know when they're lying? You watch their mouth. If the mouth is moving, they're lying. And I can't say that maybe Lakeshore Ford didn't misrepresent things. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but you know, I don't want to throw that out there, because somebody would have to talk to them, to talk to Don Hadley up there and see what it was that he told your purchasing people. But the correct way to do it, Mr. Godwin, as you said, if you're not going to buy off the state bid and that amount of money is over X number of dollars, 50,000 or 75,000, whatever the state statute is now, you should go out at least and get 3 quotes or 3 bids. And I can't help but feel, if I were consulted for a bid price on that, there wouldn't have been a question as to which way you went. And our prices, as you said, you can understand a 3 to 5% increase. It's not even that much every year. With our state QPA deal, it's a 4-year process. The state invites us to roll over our contract pricing from the initial awarded year for up to a total of 4 years contiguously. And so what that means is that in spite of a factory price increase on most retail priced units, you as the city of Gary are still price protected at our QPA price level. And so even if you took a 5% or 3% increase, that it's never that much on police vehicles on a QPA contract. Trucks, it's another story. Trucks are kind of different now. Factories have had to cut off orders for the 2021 models already. GM, for instance, cut theirs off in January, I believe. Ford cut theirs off in February. Chrysler is getting ready to terminate, taking 21 orders. And we sell all those major brands at our stores, and it's truck pricing is a problem, but police vehicle pricing is usually not, because it's a source of great pride to the manufacturers who holds the contract in what states, and they try to honor the contract pricing from year to year without too much interruption or disruption.
Well, thank you.
We're here to help you in any way.
And we certainly appreciate it, and we'll be calling on you again. I did want to ask Attorney Pohl, I know you probably won't have the answer this evening, but it's going to be coming soon with the investigation committee. Do we know who the salesperson was for these vehicles? And if not, I'd like us to determined that information? Do you know who it is in your paperwork?
I do not, but yeah, we'll definitely make sure that that is information that you're given.
Because I will tell you there are concerning rumors. And I won't delve into that about who that is, but I think you should be aware of that as the corporation counsel. Secondly, what is the mayor's position on this?
I think the mayor's position is that, as we had stated, ensuring that this, that this process is looked at, making sure that whatever mistakes, if there were mistakes that had occurred, that those mistakes don't occur, and to obviously take the situation very seriously, looking at where the city needs to go from here, how how we're going to approach procurement going forward, much in line with I believe what the concerns are of the council.
Thank you. Other council members? Questions or comments?
I just, I don't think President Godwin, you identified a timeline. I just wanted to request a timeline, Attorney Poe, if you can get those details to us. What's today, Wednesday, by Friday? End of day?
The details as to the sales individual?
Yeah, the sales individual, and no one else from the administration is on here, I don't think. And so we also wanted to get confirmation in writing in terms of what the 2020 price points were for all vehicles purchased.
Okay.
Right, because I did see documentation before, but I'd like to make sure I'm official about what I'm relying on, but it was 53 to 57. But I think seeing the invoices, seeing whatever the financing agreement is,
Yeah.
and I guess I would just ask you, if I could, Mr. Roberts, there was a lot of talk about our having credit worthiness issues. How has that worked out historically? Our credit problems didn't start last year. So you've been selling vehicles to us for a long time. Was that a challenge for us in the past?
It was one year, but in other years it wasn't. I can't tell you what year it was that there were some issues, some challenges, but we have multiple funding sources for municipal purchase of vehicles, and the main one we use is Ford Municipal Leasing, and they fund most of ours, but we have several banks, and in fact even the state of Indiana has a source for that on their state QPA system. It's called the Bond Bank of the state of Indiana. And now that is currently, it's a bank in Wabash, Indiana, of all places. But we've been dealing with them. Several agencies have gotten their funding through the bond bank in the state of Indiana, through the state of Indiana. And that seems to go well too. And in fact, I would encourage the city maybe to talk to those fellows or talk to me at some point. I can get you connected with Ford Motor Credit's municipal lease purchase arm. And they're used to doing this. They do this all over the country, and they do it a lot. So they're able to get things turned around. And it's, there's more than one way to skin that cat. You don't have to go with Ford Motor Company's finance deal. Sometimes Ford is not as competitive as the bond bank. Bond bank currently is doing police vehicle municipal purchasing for interest rates as low under 2% even in some cases, and whereas Ford right now is probably at 4.5 or something on that order for a fleet the size of yours. So I would say there are other places to go to get the money, and we can help with that if you like.
So that's not an overcomable that's an overcomable challenge.
Oh
basically.
yeah, there's no way in the world that the city of Gary is going to go without police cars when you need them. We can find a way. There's a bank in Rochester, Indiana that does it. There are several banks, and the best way to go really is the Indiana Bond Bank through the state of Indiana, and we can get you connected with those people if you'd like.
Well, that would be great. So I think what we're going to do, we have a council meeting Tuesday, and we'll follow at least the motion and vote on the investigation committee, and have some specific ask in terms of information and individuals. And I just want to convey again the importance that relevant individuals from the administration come to relevant meetings of this council. Yesterday, we had a personnel committee meeting, no HR director. We had a planning and development meeting, and again, even there, relevant persons were not present. And so when we have these meetings, we have to make sure that we cannot put all of this on the corporation council. We're not going to continue to do that or accept that. And so if we have to subpoena individuals to show up, it would be unfortunate if we have to go to that extent. That's what we're going to do, but this is not acceptable. Everyone got the meeting invite, and so they should be here. It was very clear. We had our earlier public safety committee meeting last month. We said then that we were going to follow up on our conversation related to vehicles, and that's what we're here to do today. I don't have anything else related to vehicles. We'll take this up using our necessary powers at the appropriate time, but I want to thank Mr. Roberts again, as well as the chief and Attorney Pohl for your participation. I'll turn it over to Councilman Brewer.
Okay. We're joined by our 6th District Councilman, Councilman Dwight Williams. Would like to have anything to say at this time?
I took some notes. Councilman, I'll catch what you have to give me.
Okay. All right. We also have our fire chief that's on, Sean O'Donnell, also. Chief, did you like to have anything to add? Fire chief?
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Mr. Roberts, one other thing I would like to ask. Do you just do for police vehicles, or do you do all type of fleet for trucks and things of that nature?
We do any kind of vehicles and lots of municipal vehicles, a lot of trucks for cities and towns that need snowplow trucks or who knows what kind of truck. But we do lots and lots of those. We do it for the state of Indiana, for INDOT, the Department of Transportation. We do a lot of vehicles for them. We do a lot of vehicles for universities. And that's all done on a competitive bid basis. And they don't just call us and say, hey, I need to order 18 trucks. We ordered 18 trucks the other day for Indiana University. We order trucks for the University of Illinois, a lot. And we can sell any type of vehicle, any class of vehicle, up until anything up to 36,000 GVW. So it's kind of a bigger truck. So if you need that kind of truck, we can do those too.
Just off the tip of your head, for the large snowplow trucks, what do those normally run? I'm curious.
You mean the kind that the highway department uses?
Yes.
I don't know, because they're buying bigger trucks than what we sell. They're buying trucks that are 46,000 GVW, gross vehicle weight rating, and the most we can sell is something about 36,000. So I don't get involved in those large dump trucks or large snowplow trucks. I can do municipal snowplow trucks, smaller ones, but they're not, gee whiz.
Well, what has the city ever brought snowplow trucks through the QPA through you?
No, there are no big snowplow trucks like that
Okay,
on the QPA.
thank you. That was just for my knowledge there.
Sure.
Is there any more comments by any other council members at this time?
One last question. Sam, what is your last name?
Roberts?
Roberts? Sorry about this, Sam. I was in the car having some connection problems.
Okay.
Okay. And the company you're with?
I'm with Community Auto Group in Bloomington, and that encompasses Community Ford Lincoln, Community Chrysler, Community Nissan, Community Kia and Mitsubishi, and Community Chevrolet, and a couple of other outlying satellite stores.
Well, I'll catch up with you after the meeting. That's okay.
That's fine. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for tonight's public safety meeting. I believe we got a lot of information from Mr. Roberts that you have presented to us tonight. As I stated earlier, I would not have any more public safety meeting concerning this. I will recommend to turn this over to the investigation committee to go forward to make sure that all parties that need to be here are here. Our notice did provide for individuals to be here, but they did not show up. But there are others